accommodations for up to 75 members of the community to attend the meeting. The meeting will be recorded and posted following. This will allow the public to view virtually. If you need accommodations, please contact Betsy Palacio. A link has been provided for the call to public. 20 minutes will be allowed for reading of online and in-person comments at the meeting. Any comments not read during the agenda item will be entered into the public record. We will adhere to all board meeting procedures to the extent practicable. And as I stated, an audio recording or draft copies of the minutes will be available after the meeting. We apologize in advance for any unforeseeable difficulties and ask for your patience as we navigate this unprecedented time. If you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We'll move on to roll call. Ms. Palacio.
Governing Board President Kevin Opalka.
Here.
Governing Board Clerk Denise Reese.
Here.
Governing Board Member Sherry Lowe.
Here.
Governing Board Member Dr. John Sparks.
Here.
Governing Board Member Nicole Warner. Absent. District Administration Superintendent Dr. Manuel Valenzuela.
Present.
Assistant Superintendent Scott Downs.
Here.
Assistant Superintendent Brett Bonner.
Here.
Chief Financial Officer Lisette Huey.
Here.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to the approval of the revised agenda. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, sir. President Opalka, members of the board, I would recommend approval of the agenda as it was revised.
I have a recommendation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Motion carries. We'll move on to the approval of the minutes. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, sir. President Opalka, members of the board, you have in your packet 2 items of public presence involving the board. The first is let me double check. We're talking about
Minutes.
minutes. Okay. Yes, we have minutes. I was correct. So we're talking about the minutes of the regularly scheduled meeting of the board on September 15th, 2021, and also another public gathering of the board, the ASBA virtual county meeting on September 23rd. And after your review and consideration, I do recommend approval of those items as they are presented.
I also see on mine community conversation from the 29th. Do we have a quorum there?
I don't recall, but let's include it for the sake of clarity.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a motion, or I'm sorry, I have a recommendation to have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We'll move on to the ratification of the vouchers. Ms. Huey.
Good evening. Tonight, I recommend payroll ratifications number 5 and 6 totaling $3,406,480.54. New payroll number 10 for $3 million, totaling payroll amount of $6,406,480.54. Next, I recommend approval of expense vouchers 1019 through 1026, totaling $1,168,187.27. Next, I recommend new expense vouchers for approval 1035 to 1038, totaling $8 million, for a grand total of $15,574,667.81.
Thank you very much. I have a recommendation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. We'll move on to the superintendent report.
Yes, sir. Thank you, President Opalka. We always begin with our enrollment report, and it's nice to see green, even if it is green in the direction of 4 students compared to the last time that we met. But probably more telling is I don't know if we have the other graph, the trends over time, is you see the numbers comparable, the numbers this year in blue comparable to the same point in time last year, I think you see hopefully what you would deem a more favorable trend. The blue line seems to have stabilized more versus last year. What you saw was a more steep trajectory downward. So that's an encouraging sign with enrollment. We also have a video. This Saturday, a contingent from Sahuarita will be traveling up I-10 to recognize and celebrate one of our teachers, Ashton Gilday, who is a top 5 finalist for the coveted title, Arizona Teacher of the Year. And this was a little news story that was done about Mr. Gilday.
Ashton Gilday is one of 5 finalists for Arizona Teacher of the Year. He was nominated by his coworkers and then selected through a tough application process.
Now let's try this again. How did it feel to learn this fact about George Washington?
It's this kind of enthusiasm that students and colleagues really like about Mr. Gilday.
He is passionate about the profession, and he's passionate about our kids. He truly cares about each and every student.
Gilday teaches English at Walden Grove High School. The Sahuarita School District named him their Teacher of the Year, and the state made him top 10 in July. After that, he had to submit this sample of his teaching and give a speech to a panel of judges.
And I was so humbled because I was like, how am I being compared to these teachers from around the state who are doing all these things that they're talking about?
Walden Grove Principal Teresa Hill says Gilday is especially admired by seniors because he focuses on real-world issues. Gilday does incorporate classic literature into his lessons, but the emphasis is on current events.
Because their seniors are about to go into the real world, so they want to know, like, how do I function? How do I communicate in this already existing conversation about these issues?
The Arizona Teacher of the Year will be announced at a ceremony on October 16th. Robbie Reynolds.
Have some pictures of something that we would deem normal, but this year we are grateful for everything that resonates with what was normal. And we were doing, in the name of safety, some bus safety evacuation drills under the coordination of our transportation director, Mike Fiesler. I think this was at Copper View. And again, this is a required safety protocol that we utilize to make sure that we're prepared for emergencies in the event of a need to evacuate to or from a school bus. Let's see. Oh, I'm also very proud to announce that we were just notified today that a grant that we submitted to the federal government, it's called a federal E-rate grant. Say that one 3 times fast. And this, it's a competitive grant, and we were successful in securing about $350,000 worth of technology, specifically about 1,100 Chromebook devices and associated carts and hardware and equipment, which will be deployed to support our learning programs here in the district. And I'd like to express thanks to our CFO, Lizette Huey, our information tech director, Manny Villa, who's around here somewhere doing his thing, and also their associates, Christina Martin and Ethan Haar. So, and then finally, I'd like to showcase some photos of our Naval JROTC Battalion Raider Company. This is like serious stuff. Sleds, relays, trekking in the mud, as you'll see, competing, and we recently hosted a large statewide competition, including some of the largest and most renowned programs and respected programs in the state. And our Sahuarita and JROTC program, I am pleased to share with you, was victorious.
We don't have those pictures, Bob.
We don't have those pictures? Oh, and those are awesome. Kids making their way through the muck and the mud. Well, this, after they got cleaned up, today, I'll tell you what, any of you that would have been there would have been so proud. And maybe some of you were there. I know Board Member Reese was there with me. This was the annual military inspection, which is required by the Department of the Navy of our battalion, which is about 190 strong. We had a guest inspector, Commander Klee from the University of Arizona NJROTC program, and they evaluate students on their military history, military knowledge, drill, precision, marching, and overall bearing. And the feedback I got from the commander was extremely favorable about our overall program quality, the maturity, the poise, the bearing of our young people, our facilities, and the support that we receive from the community. So there's the future of America, and they make us very, very proud. And with that, President Opalka, I will conclude my report. Thank you very much for the time.
Yeah, thank you very much. We'll move on to the governing board reports. Dr. Sparks.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to, express coming back from fall break. I hope everybody enjoyed the respite and are going into the next few months. It's a pretty busy time of year, and I hope everybody enjoyed the little break. But one of the things I'm grateful for after visiting schools and talking to teachers and administrators and parents is the effort that we have by staff to cover and fill in where needed. I know we're still struggling to hire substitute teachers and even fill some positions that we've been working to fill. And a lot of that is taken up by teachers that are here with us. They're taking on extra duties and roles. And I just really appreciate that, so that we keep classrooms open and that we kind of keep things moving along swiftly. And I noticed that was, no complaints, really. People were pretty positive. Like, we understand things are kind of coming back to normal, and there's no surplus of teachers around to kind of pick up during the middle of the year. But I appreciate the effort on the part of the staff to do that, so that students have classrooms that are covered by individuals that care and are dedicated to that craft of education. But also been to a couple football games. It's always fun to feel the night get cool and the lights come on and enjoy those football games. And it's been a couple really good games over the last few weeks too. So that's all I had to share. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lowell.
No report.
Ms. Reese.
So I did get to attend the annual military inspection today, held at Sahuarita High School. It encompassed students from our campus, from Sahuarita High School, from Walden Grove High School, and also from Sahuarita Middle School. It was amazing to see, especially for those freshmen who've only been involved with this program for a quarter, to see that they were falling right in step with their older counterparts. And it was just really, really neat. And if you're looking for something to do this Saturday, Walden Grove High School is hosting a marching band competition. It starts in the afternoon. Both high schools will be there, in addition to some additional high schools from the area, including up in Tucson. And so if you'd like something to do on Saturday afternoon, that's going on this weekend. So.
Thank you very much. I did want to congratulate Dr. Sparks on his appointment to the county's board role for ASBA. He was again elected. This is his second term, right? So he ran unopposed, but I think that's because he represents us down here in Pima County, quite well, and everybody recognizes that. So congratulations to that. Additionally, we, as a board, I believe we received an award recognition for our boardsmanship and the training that we've all collectively done over the years to educate ourselves on Arizona laws and school management and that stuff. So congratulations to everybody on those well-deserved awards. So that's all I have. Thank you. We'll move on to the recognition of community, staff, and students, one of our favorite parts of the evening. And the student recognition for September and Leaders in Character. Dr. Valenzuela, you want to start with them, and then we'll move on to the October recipients.
Yes, sir. And I'd like to welcome all of you parents, family, friends, grandparents. This is truly one of the, Mr. Opalka, President Opalka is not exaggerating. This is truly one of the highlights of a meeting each month, and that is to recognize our outstanding students who exemplify at the highest level something that we believe is a vital part of receiving a quality education, which is learning, demonstrating, and modeling high levels of leadership and character. And by your daily example, by setting an example for your peers. So each of these students was identified for doing exactly that. It's 1 or 2 students per school, depending on the makeup of the school, the size of the school. But you are in special company. We thank your parents because your example, your values, your guidance is molding these traits in these young people. And this is the future leadership of our country, and we could not be more proud. We do have some symbolic tokens of recognition that we'd like to share. There's, of course, a letter from me, a very nice certificate recognizing our students, and a nice gift card from our partners at the Freeport-McMoran Company. And then when we're all done, I assume that Mrs. Woods here is going to be taking our picture. The way I think we roll in this era is you'll come down, Mrs. Lowell will present you your certificate. You just walk around all the gear and wires and stuff here. You'll come up to the back wall. Mr. Bonner will be there to help you too. And we'll take your picture with our sincerest acknowledgement and congratulations. So let's get started. As Mr. Opalka said, we do have a couple of honorees from September that weren't able to make it, and we want to make sure we start with them. So we begin with the leaders in character for September from Sahuarita Intermediate School. We'd like to congratulate Henry Sen. Henry, hope you're here tonight. Come on down. And we have another honoree from September. This individual is from our fully online Sahuarita Digital Pathways Academy. Congratulations to Levi Wallace. Levi. Congratulations. And we now move on to our honorees for October 2021. And we begin, as we've done probably for years, if not more than a decade, our leader in character from Sopari Elementary School. Congratulations, Damaso Morales. Damaso. I know it's kind of crowded up there, my friend. All right, at Anza Trail is one of the schools where we recognize two, since besides being our biggest school in enrollment, it also is basically two schools in one, right? An elementary component and a middle school component. So we'll begin with our elementary component. Congratulations to our leader in character from Anza Trail, Evelyn Wiles, 3rd grade. And while Evelyn is recognized, we will recognize our leader in character from the Anza Trail Middle School component. Congratulations, 6th grader Penelope Gibbs. We now come back over here to the main campus, where we recognize our leader in character from Sahuarita Primary School. Congratulations, Liliana Del Toro. Our next honoree this evening hails from Sahuarita Intermediate School. Congratulations, Jolene Ruiz. And our leader in character from Copperview is a 1st grader this month. Congratulations, Grayson Hunt. We move back across the street at Wrightson Ridge, where again we recognize an elementary and a middle school student. Our elementary leader in character is Eva Corneliuson. And our middle school honored student from Wrights and Ridge School is an 8th grader. Congratulations, Aurora Felsian. And now it is my honor to recognize our leader in character from Sahuarita Middle School, Lydia Anderson. Our next student is our leader in character from Sahuarita High School, and I'm going to brag a little extra on Noah, just because I love doing that about our students. Noah has been named a semifinalist for the prestigious National Merit Scholarship Program. Congratulations, Noah Cornaby. Noah's a senior at Sahuarita High School, as is our honoree from Walden Grove is also a senior. Congratulations to Duncan Hoover. And if you're wondering about that smiling face on the screen, that is our leader in character from Sahuarita Digital Pathways Academy, again, our fully online school. And this young lady is a kindergarten student, so has made a strong impression very, very quickly. Congratulations, Allison Jarvis. We are extremely proud of you. Again, we thank and recognize all of your parents, family, and friends that are here. We're going to take a picture because our local newspaper, Mr. Shear over there, and the team at the Sahuarita Sun are going to put it in their newspaper because they like to share good news with the community. So congratulations, Ms. Woods. Are you ready to do the honors? Okay, and after the photograph, family and friends, you're welcome to stay, but at that point, if you need to go, got homework or other things to do, we'll take like a 1-minute stretch break to give you a chance to do that. Thank you.
Ready? 1, 2, 3, big smile. Oh, don't put them over your There we go. 1, 2, 3, look this way, big smile. One more, big smile. There we go.
Hold up, real quick. Parents want to come down, take a picture down here, you're welcome to.
Hi, how are you? Good, it's so nice to see you. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe he's at this. I know. Dear baby, it's a baby. Oh my gosh, it goes by too fast. Congratulations.
You're still recording, right? It's weird, yeah.
We need about another minute recess here while we deal with some stuff. So just hang in here, and we'll get back started as soon as Dr. Valenzuela comes back.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you for being patient. We'll get back into the meeting. Next up is the call to public. And I'll remind everyone that in consideration and discussion of comments and concerns from the public, those wishing to address the governing board on items not on tonight's agenda may do so at this time or at the board's discretion at the time the items appear on the agenda. Speakers are requested to hold their comments to 2 minutes or less. 20 minutes will be allowed for both online and in-person comments. In accordance with Arizona open meeting law, board members may not respond, comment, or ask questions of speakers regarding issues not on the agenda. Any comments not read during this agenda item will be entered into public record. Ms. Reese.
The first speaker tonight is Mary Grace Werner.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for allowing us to speak. My name is, of course, Mary Grace Warner. You know my background, I think, from a couple of weeks ago. I'm here just to talk a little bit about vaccines, in particular vaccinating our children. Not always are we well informed, and I want to be sure that people know the benefits and the risks to vaccinating their children. This is the weekly U.S. data for 12 to 17-year-olds from October 1st, 2021. 21,298 total adverse events for these kids, including 1,284 listed as serious and 22 reported deaths. The most recent death includes a 16-year-old male. These are VAERS reports, who recently died from cardiac failure 5 days after receiving the Pfizer COVID vaccine. And there are more, but for time's sake, I'm going to skip over those. More statistics. 3,202 reports of anaphylaxis among 12 to 17-year-olds, with 99% of cases attributed to Pfizer's vaccine. 520 reports of myocarditis and pericarditis, which is heart inflammation, with 508 cases attributed to Pfizer's vaccine. 114 reports of blood clotting disorders, with all cases attributed to Pfizer. As deaths and injuries to teens increase after COVID-19 shots, Pfizer has asked the FDA for emergency authorization to inject 5 to 11-year-olds. If you believe, as I believe, that these injections are toxic, then why would you want to have your children or grandchildren injected? Why expose them to an experimental injection that has not been proven to be safe based on these facts? In fact, it has been documented to
That's your
not
time.
be safe.
Thank you very much.
Common sense says there are too many risks and not enough benefits. What parent would choose to experiment on their kids this way?
The next speaker this evening
when
is
safer
Lou
and more
Sampson.
effective options are available? Just say no.
Lou Sampson.
Hi, good evening. My name's Lou Sampson, and I was just thinking about the result of the lockdown. A lot of parents got a peek into what schools are teaching their children, and a lot of parents are not happy with the critical race theory and going along that route. And last month I found out that I was not a stakeholder in this meeting, and I just want you to know that I am. I don't have children in this district. I don't live in this district, but I have friends that have children in this district. When I shop at Sahuarita, I pay Sahuarita taxes. I pay Pima County taxes. I pay state taxes. And that's who funds your school, so I do have a vested interest. Now, the last 3 meetings, you have spent over an hour discussing masks. And I thought last time the superintendent was trying to say it might not be worth it. Let's get back to educating our children instead of that over an hour discussion. And I just wanted you to know I go to the Continental School District also. In May, they made masks optional. They have stuck to it. They haven't even discussed it again. In May, they decided, the board voted on there is no CRT in their teaching. The principal 2 months ago made a report on how she is striving and implementing actions to educate her kids to become an A+ student, A+ school. That's what they're doing. And the superintendent made, on her report, said she visited every teacher and let them know there would be no CRT taught in any of the classrooms. So I just wanted you to know what another school is doing. They're getting back to reading, writing, and arithmetic, and that is the job of what schools are supposed to be doing.
That's your time. Thank you.
And I thank you, and I hope we can get back to that and just being Americans again instead of separating us all.
Brittany Blaylock.
Hi. So I have a couple things I want to talk about. For one, I want to mention the survey. It took me the day prior to finishing it, or the day prior to it being due for me to finish it. And if it took me that long, and you guys know I come to all these meetings, then think about the parents that don't care as much, or, are even busier than I am, that probably just, if they couldn't get in, they just gave up on it. And also I talked to a coworker of mine 2 days ago, and they said that she checked her email as I told her, and she said that she had no idea about it. She didn't, and then she went through her email, she never received it. So, and I've heard that from several parents. So I think that, I don't know what the results were, but either way, I think it was a waste of time and energy. I also think our time as parents should be focused on helping our kids with homework, sight words, math, instead of trying to figure out how to fill out a survey. It took way too much time, and it took away time from what we could have been spending with our kids to help them in school. I really hope this is the last, and this is separate, but I really hope this is the last time I feel I have to come up here and defend my parental rights for my kids. I've said it multiple times here at these meetings that my kids are thriving this year. They are much happier, and they look forward to coming to school every day now that they're not forced to wear these masks. And then lastly, I want to say thank you to the members on the board that have respected our rights as parents. I really think parental rights are important in schools. So us parents appreciate you. And then also just giving us the option to choose if we want our kids tested.
That's your time. Thank
Masked,
you.
I believe. If the board members truly care about our kids, which I hope you do, and those are your intentions of being on the board, then it should remain the parents' right to choose what they feel is best for them, not the government, not the school board, or anyone else. It should all
That's your
remain the
time.
parents' right,
Thank you, Ms. Glaylock.
choice and decisions. Thank you.
Renee Kibbe.
Hello, thank you for letting me talk again today. And I want to also thank Dr. V for being so gracious and kind to my son during the community conversation. He had a really random question, and Dr. V was very gracious and he answered it, and thank you so much. That was very thoughtful, and he felt very special. But I want to talk about natural immunity to COVID. Past COVID-19 infections have been found to protect very reliably from reinfection, and strong specific humoral and cellular immunity is detected in almost all recovered individuals, and also in those who remained asymptomatic throughout the infection. Thus, a large proportion of individuals in all age groups, including adolescents, already have specific, reliable immunity to COVID-19. As mentioned previously, most of those who do not have such specific immunity nevertheless are protected from severe disease by cross-immunity. This immunity will be particularly affected in healthy adolescents and young adults. Individuals with specific immunity or sufficient cross-immunity cannot possibly derive any benefit from undergoing an experimental vaccination. In addition, the neutralizing antibodies produced because of natural immunity are long-lasting, robust, and capable of effectively attaching to various antigenetic determinants of not only the spike protein, but the capsid, the envelope, and cellular proteins of the SARS-CoV-2 virus. How good is the vaccine at protecting against the viral variants? Those being hospitalized with the Delta variant are more vaccinated
That's your time, Ms.
individuals
Kibbe.
than non-vaccinated individuals. Thank you.
Sarah Price.
Hi, my name is Sarah Price, and I'm a member of the community. I also worked in education for many years of my life in a school district in Orange County, California. So I'm, familiar with being in that environment, and I like that environment a lot. I want to thank you all for allowing me to speak, and I'm going to read another thing. I hope this is the end of this masks and COVID stuff. Risk of COVID-19 for children. Children are the main reserve of seasonal coronaviruses that cause the common cold. The cold coronavirus cross-react with the SARS-CoV-2 coronavirus, providing protection against it. There is evidence that when children are exposed to the virus, they receive a smaller dose of the virus than adults because their upper respiratory tract, noses, contain fewer ACE2 receptors, which the virus uses to gain access to the lower respiratory tract and additional cells and tissues and organs of the human body. Children's innate ability to neutralize the virus can also be linked to the fact that they have a strong innate immune response from birth, their maternal antibodies. The rapidity and scale of their innate immune response might be protective against the initial infection. Children are very adapted to and well equipped to respond to new viruses. This is by Donna Faber, an immunologist at Columbia University in New York City. Even when they are affected with SARS-CoV-2, children are most likely to experience mild or symptomatic illness. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Dr. Valenzuela, too.
Thank you.
That concludes our live call to the public. There is one submission from online. From Aline Wilson. My grandson attends Wrightston Ridge, and I speak as a grandmother with whom I assist in his caregiving. I take Dr. Valenzuela at his word of no mask mandate. I co-organize a group across our nation fighting for legislation of the voucher system. The money follows the child, and the parent is the sole decision maker in their child's educational curriculum. I do not support CRT, and my main concerns is the education of my grandson. And that concludes call to the public.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. We will move on now to the new business instruction, the proposed 2023-2024 school calendar. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, thank you, President Opalka, members of the board. You might think back and remember, gosh, I think it's been 2 or 3 years now, but the board made what I think was a good request, that we look even further in the future in terms of our calendars so that people have as much notice as possible about when holidays are, when start and end dates are, semesters, et cetera, so that they can plan their family and other obligations accordingly, with the understanding that the farther out you plan, the greater the likelihood that something could change. So with those considerations, I've charged Assistant Superintendent Bonner with leading this charge, and this evening he comes to the board to present a proposal for, if you can think about it, the 2023-24 school teaching calendar. Brett?
Thank you, Dr. Valenzuela, members of the board, and members of the Sahuarita Unified School District community. I'd like to present to you the proposed 2023-2024 school calendar. As referenced by Dr. Valenzuela, the board gave great guidance in the sense of let's be really planned out with our school calendar, allow our community and parents to have a chance to view it, share feedback, and since that time we've been initiating an annual cycle. We're always 2 years ahead in our calendaring efforts. All of our district calendars are posted on our webpage, and you have access to those calendars at any given time. So just a few items to keep in mind under the proposed calendar. By state statute, we're required to have 180 school days. This calendar reflects that. In addition to that, we do meet the required state statute instructional minutes and hours by grade level span, elementary, middle school, and high school. The calendar presented is very consistent with what we've done historically, starting with our new teacher induction at the last week of July, first day of school starting the Monday of August 7th. In addition to that, we have a pretty well-balanced quarterly schedule, where the first quarter would be equivalent to 44 days, second quarter would be 46 days, with a total semester of 90 days, so very balanced. In the second semester, we have a quarter of 42 days, and the fourth quarter, 48 days, again, another 90 days. So a total of 180, great balance with planning and instructional planning as well. A few other items to be cognizant of. We continue with our early release days on Wednesdays. They're highlighted in the color frame span for each month. Each Wednesday, we do have an early release. A note to self as well, during the month of April on this particular calendar, there are no holidays, none at all. So we wanted to continue with what we've done historically in past practices, is to keep that spring holiday in place. So we're recommending that Friday, April 19th be that spring holiday, so there's at least one holiday break during that month time frame. Based on feedback and from our community and our families and staff, historically we have not gone beyond the Memorial Day weekend. We historically have ended school prior to Memorial Day. Memorial Day in May 2024 is on Monday, May 27th. So this also aligns with that past pattern. In addition to that, we've done surveys in the past with our family and community looking at, do we keep our traditional school calendar where we have the beginning August, ending in May, or do we want to do a modified calendar where it's more year-round, similar to like what Vail School District has done, and it's been split on both sides. The majority of our families continue to support our traditional calendar, what is being presented to you again today. And so with that, I would like to pass this back to Dr. Valenzuela. As we've done in the past, as soon as this meeting is over, we will provide a live link where parents can go onto that link, give feedback, and this calendar will be tabled under Dr. Valenzuela's recommendation until next board meeting in November, which will be November 10th. And I'll share the feedback, share any insights, and then hopefully with Dr. Valenzuela's approval, we'll seek approval to move forward to establish this as the 2023-2024 school calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Bonner. And at this time, I would recommend the tabling of the proposed 2023-24 school calendar.
Thank you very much. I have a recommendation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. We will table it till next month. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the new business annual financial report 2021.
Yes, sir. Thank you, President Opalka, members of the board and community. By Arizona state law, by October 15th of each year, every public school district governing board is required to produce and approve an annual financial report, which is basically a summary of the prior year's expenditures. As we know, the prior year has been one unlike any ever in its history. Before I turn it over to my colleague, Lizette Huey, our CFO, I just want to thank her for her very intentional and very visionary leadership and very methodical approach to being something that I know this board is called to do, which is be very wise stewards of the public dollars that are entrusted to us. In a nutshell, I can tell you that we lost a lot of enrollment, which correlates to a significant amount of money, about $5 million, through the natural decline in enrollment. Fortunately, with the support of the bridge, the dollars that served as a bridge, the federal stimulus, the recovery funds, the ESSER funds, things like that, we've been able to largely recover, and the district goes forward in a rather solid financial footing, given where we've been in the last year. And for all of the details and to answer all of the hard questions, I turn it over to my colleague, Mrs. Huey.
Thank you, Dr. Valenzuela. Good evening, President Opalka, members of the board, district administration, and community. Tonight, I'll be presenting, like Dr. Valenzuela said, the annual financial report for the 2021 annual financial report. What's before you is that this is a statute that requires us to prepare the annual financial report, and what it is basically it's a year-end review of all of our last year's expenditures, and they divide that into by category, by fund, by function, and they really make sure that we provide all of the details related to our expenditures. This information is also added to our annual classroom expenditure report that comes out by the Auditor General's office as well in the springtime. Next slide. The next slide is all of our expenditures. These are all the requirements. They meet the regulations and accountability standards, and before you is just a sample of all of the regulations that governs all of our expenses. Next slide. Each year, this is just an example of our budget and our life of a budget process. So basically, we are usually operating 3 budgets at one time. Right now, we're working, as we are right now, completing the 2021 budget, which is the approval of the annual financial report. And then concurrently, we adopted our 2022 budget, and we are waiting for our 40th day allocation from the state to determine what the allocation is going to be for this year. Additionally, whatever is decided for this current fiscal year also then goes into the next fiscal year of 2023. So this is just a diagram just explaining that we are always working in 3 fiscal years when we're managing the budget. Next slide. At this time, I'd like to share how our day-to-day operations for our business operations equates to the annual financial report and all of the figures that is brought before you. Our accounts payable department processes, reviews, and makes payments on 3,731 purchase orders, along with 172,649 transactions processed through our general ledger each year, which is reflected and accounted for on our annual financial report. I just wanted to give them a special thank you for all of the schools, the departments, the sites, all of their administrative assistants, because they're the ones that also help us in processing all of these requisitions and all of these purchases for their school sites. So without them, this wouldn't be possible. So I just wanted to extend a gratitude to our school sites and our departments. Also, I'm pleased to acknowledge that this year we have decreased our number of account codes because we're trying to streamline all of our ledgers and trying to be consistent with what account coding that we have district-wide. We were able to decrease 18,062 account codes. We cleaned our ledger and as best we could, and we will continue to monitor all of our ledger expenses and remove any unnecessary codings that we have and also meet the compliances by the state. Furthermore, we manage and fiscally report and assist all of our directors on 30 highly regulated federal and state grants, which is an increase of 14 more grants than we had in the prior year, which we're grateful for. The financial responsibility is extensive, detailed, and extremely time-consuming. I also wanted to thank Christina Martin, who does a great job with working with ADE to manage these grants, to request our funds, to also work with our directors, and to report these expenditures given all of the added red tape. So yes, we get these grants, but of course they also have their own rules and regulations that we have to abide by. Despite the number of transactions, our business office runs an efficient and smooth operations, and I'm very proud of the entire business office team who demonstrate hard work, knowledge, and a special thank you for their commitment to our mission of our district and helping our students and our staff really try to go through that process and be as streamlined as possible. Next slide. Since the majority of our budget is based on salaries and benefits, I think it's important to highlight the payroll operations and how it contributes to the annual financial report. This past year, payroll processed 44,248 payroll transactions last year. That's including all of our IRS and W-2s, employee deductions, quarterly payroll for approximately 900 employees. Ashley Clifton and Melissa Jaramillo are our payroll specialists and technicians who work hard to ensure that payroll is accurate, timely. Their knowledge and expertise in relation to payroll taxes, benefits, and also some knowledge in human resources is appreciated and valued. Next slide. Tonight, I just wanted to give a highlight of all of the projects that we were working on in fiscal 2021. We'll start with iVisions, and this is just a continued project that we worked alongside with HR to manage and to present to elevate our level of service to our school sites and to our staff. And basically, what our intent is to have a one-stop shop for all of our employees for both business and also for HR services. This provides users a remote access for employees to view and download their W-2s, their paychecks. It allows employees to change their payroll deductions and sign their contracts as well. This year, through the collaboration with HR, the implementation of ePARS has added value, not only just to take advantage of the electronic process, but I think it's important to understand that by doing that, it has tied our positions directly to our budget, which now we were able to have a better fiscally responsible, we were able to fiscally forecast and be fiscally responsible through that process. So it gives us streamline, accuracy, and also accounting credentials that we didn't have as good access as we did in the past. Additionally, we currently implemented the Commerce Bank payments, which basically what we did this past year is that we combined forces. We went through Commerce Bank only to be able to have businesses that we do business with, like our vendors, to be able to pay them quicker, to pay our invoices quicker. So if they sign up with us, we are able to pay for them via electronic payment versus having to process a hard check. And that was huge. The implementation was extensive due to COVID, but it has streamlined our payment process, which allows us to provide better service to our vendors because we want to continue to do business with them. So we want to pay them timely. We want to be able to allow another avenue for them to get their payment quicker and more expedient. The prior year, we implemented budget control groups for our cash funds, specifically to tax credit and gifts and donations. This past year, we continued to set up those budget control groups, specifically in the area of maintenance and operation, which is our M&O budget, our main budget, and then also capital for all of our sites. The purpose for this implementation was to allow for quicker processing of expenses to our sites. In the past, what was happening is that we would have to, all the sites would have to provide a line item budget to the business office and then also forecast what their expenses were. Well, if it was in the wrong account code, then they would have to process a transfer, and then the transfer would have to, it would take some time, added time, so that we can process requisitions and expenses. If the funds, again, if the funds weren't in the right account code, we'd have to transfer those. Therefore, with utilizing the benefits of Visions and utilizing the system to its best, in the best way that we can, we have moved away from that budget transfer process so that hopefully our hope was that our teachers, our staff, our admin have the ability to fund, to have funds quicker without additional delays for better service. This past year, we also reevaluated our roles and responsibilities to see what we can do to streamline our processes and procedures and provide needed service to our sites, to be consistent, while also maintaining separation of duties required by our Auditor General's office. Therefore, with the support of Dr. Valenzuela and the district, we were able to, without adding additional staff or additional costs, we were able to reanalyze our accounts payable and make sure that we had, so we have 4 accounts payable. 3 of them we kept as accounts payable, and 1 of them we made as a specialized area in purchasing and procurement. This has helped with being consistent in our coding, purchases, and needing less approvals in the purchasing process as well. Florence Lopez has been instrumental, and she has a strong background in purchasing and procurement. Also, Janet and Tamara are our newest team members, and they continue to deliver service on all things related to accounts payable. So all of them are doing a wonderful job, and I thank them. The next item is the governing board took advantage of the low interest rate for refunding. As you recall, we refunded, which is also known as like a refinance of our 2010 and 2015 outstanding bonds. By refunding, again, it means a refinancing of our bonds to save our taxpayers, and what it did is saved our taxpayers $1.8 million in interest, versus if we hadn't refinanced any of them. So I wanted to thank the governing board for approving this initiative, as it means a cost savings to our taxpayers. The interest rate that we had before was 4.02, and we went to 1.33%. It also allows us to pay off our debt 2 years sooner. So I just wanted to thank you again for that. In fiscal year 19, we started our general ledger cleanup, like I mentioned before, and through this process, not only did we eliminate 18,000 account codes, but in the prior year, we had a cleanup as well. So a total right now of 38,000 account codes that we were able to diminish. And again, a special thanks to Christina Martin, who led in those efforts. Lastly, once again, we are able to offer free breakfast, lunch, and weekend meals during the summer, which was huge. And we continue to offer free breakfast and lunch to all of our students in our community. We increased significantly our feeding to almost double in our schools. It is good to see more students enjoying their meals that we serve. A big appreciation goes to Susie Harris, Raul, and the rest of the SFE team. They also were hit by the pandemic related to staffing. So for us to feed almost double the amount of students with less staff is a big deal. Again, I also want to share appreciation to Sandra Ortega and Christina Martin, who also have to go through all the red tape to get through so that our community can get free meals and for free meals for our students. Next slide, please. Now let's take all of those transactions that we talked about and how the day-to-day operations equate to our AFR and an annual financial reporting. Compare that to prior year. So what we show here is that our M&O shows a decrease of expenses from prior year of approximately $3.6 million compared to the prior year. As you know, this is due to the decreased number of students during the pandemic, like Dr. Valenzuela mentioned. Each category shows a decrease in expenditures from the prior year. The most significant decrease comes from our regular education as well as transportation. The reason you see the decrease is not because we spent less, but that those expenditures still existed. We were just able to shift those expenses to the Enrollment Stabilization Grant, which is also known as the ESG, and the secondary, the elementary secondary school emergency relief, say that quick 5 times, which is known as ESSER 2. This allowed us to keep and maintain keep the main goal of not having to RIF anyone and to keep staffing due to the loss of enrollment. Next slide, please. This slide gives the expenditure by category. So the majority decrease to expenditures was in salaries and benefits. We also show a significant decrease to supplies overall, and that was mainly because the majority of the time that we were on remote learning, and then also we had ESSER 1 funds that paid for the custodial items that we purchased in the past, and we were able to shift those costs to the ESSER 1 grant. There's also a slight decrease in all of the categories for purchase services, which include professional services, such as subs and communications. The other category is for the miscellaneous expenditures due to dues and fees, as well as associated costs with student travel. Next slide, please. This chart is basically a summary of all of the year's expenditures, and the blue basically is the last year's expenditure compared to the green, which is in fiscal year 1920. And basically the expenditures align. The only difference is that you can see that we spent less, and that is an accurate statement, and that's shown here. Next slide, please. This slide is our district additional assistance. So we just talked about our maintenance and operation. This is our district additional assistance, which is also known as DAA. This is our allocation, and basically the chart here basically shows where our monies went and how we received those monies. So again, our allocation was 2.9. We receive continental tuition for their students who attend our high schools, and so we got an increase of $81,000. However, last year there was still a state reduction, so the state still withdrew and took away a little bit under $500,000, and then we also moved $650,000 to M&O, which is approved in our budget when we adopted our budget. Our budget allocation for DAA also includes our DAA override, and that is voter approved. That was an initiative that the voters passed to allow us to purchase more district additional assistance, and that's $1 million each year. And we are extremely grateful for our community who passed that override. It's helped us tremendously. Next slide, please. This slide basically shows all of how we expended our funds. So this is the expenditure comparison for the district additional assistance assistance compared to last year. As you can see, our expenses in capital were lower, and again, that's mainly due to the pandemic. And the uses of our other appropriate resources like our SFB funds, and that was attributed to facilities, and I know George was instrumental in that when he was here, helping us look at resources through the SFB funds for our facilities. So that's why you see that there's not a lot of expenses in facilities, not because we didn't pay attention to them, but we were able to get some money from the school facilities board in order to fulfill those needs that we had for our facilities. The need for instructional aids did increase from the prior year, and the other category is for the principal and interest that we pay for our school buses, so that's why they're the same as the prior year. About half of our expenses in furniture and equipment were spent on technology. As a reminder, our district additional assistance, the requests that we receive from each of our schools, they normally exceed $4.5 million. So you can see the needs outweigh how much we receive, and but this is exactly how the monies was spent last year. And with that, that concludes the presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Ms. Huey?
If there are no questions, President Polk, I'd recommend, as required, your approval of the annual financial report as it was presented, so that it can be submitted where it needs to go.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the recommendation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Just thank you for all the hard work. I know this is a monumental task, and we really appreciate it. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The same? All right, motion carries. Thank you again.
Thank you.
We'll move on to public online auction items. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, sir. President Opalka, members of the board, you have a list. It's actually, I know I always say it's a long list. This one is long. It's like 2 pages long. Of items that have exhausted their useful life by definition and therefore may be put on the auction block for the capturing of residual value. My only observation in actually looking at the list is that it's a lot of really old multimedia, audiovisual technology stuff. So hopefully it has value to somebody, but at this point I would recommend your designating of these materials for public auction.
Thank you very much. I have a recommendation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. We'll move on to the sole source procurement. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, as the board may be aware, and for the good of the board and public, there's state law and administrative regulations that allow certain items that meet certain criteria to be deemed sole source. Because they really are the only ones that can provide it, or there's some unique great value to that designation. The one that always cracks me up is that the IRS has sole source for the collection of federal taxes or whatever. But this one that's added on here is an item, I believe it's our firewall company called Nextio. So I would recommend the designation of this vendor as meeting the criteria and being on the list for sole source procurement.
Thank you very much. I have a recommendation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you very much. Motion carries. We'll move on to the Arizona School Facilities Board Capital Plan FY22.
Yes, sir. I've heard the School Facilities Board mentioned a couple of times, or as they're affectionately known as the SFB. This is a body that was formed a few decades ago that really was part of the whole state equalization for facilities. They provide, as mentioned, monies for building renovations based on qualifying criteria. But one of the big things that defines our relationship with them is this is a body that is responsible for allocating dollars based on pretty complicated criteria for new school construction. And so I want to say thanks to my colleague, Mr. Downs, who has become our resident expert on the School Facilities Board. As you'll hear, he is very formula driven. There's a very methodical process for how growth rates are projected, how many children are projected to come out of every new house that's built, and it allows us to create that compelling, accurate point to the SFB so that we position ourselves in the best way possible to receive funds that we have coming to us to support the growth of our community. So I'm just going to turn it over. This plan, the plan itself has to be approved. That's why we're here. But I think the information Mr. Downs has is, I think you'll find it very interesting. Mr. Downs?
Thank you, Dr. Valenzuela, President Opalka, governing board members, and community. Thank you for allowing me to present this report to you. I will start by saying he who has the money makes the rules. That is the School Facilities Board. And I wanted to try to summarize really what the SFB capital report is in one sentence. And the easiest way I can explain it is this is basically just a data set that we are giving to the SFB that they will do what they want to do with, that really allows us to show the district perspective on the trajectory of what our school capital building might need. So again, they're going to take this data and do what they want. They have a full-time statistician that will take this information and, as Dr. Valenzuela said, really apply a lot more formulas to what they do. And in the end, they send us a report and telling us what status and kind of where we are at this moment in time. So really, this is just a data set that we're giving to School Facilities Board. Anytime that you're trying to project the future, it is nothing more than a crystal ball. There's a lot of ways to do it, and we have traditionally done it the same way, and I feel that that's appropriate because I don't want to take data one year and use it to our advantage and then the next year do something else. So the first slide, if you will, Betsy, this is really just a visual of the methodology that we use, and the next slide will say it in words, but I thought it would make more sense to show you what it was before I told you what it was. Is what we do is we take the population of every school, with the schools that are in yellow there. Preschool and kindergarten have to count for 0.5 of a student. We cannot count them as a full student. And we come up with what our number is. And this information was pulled on August 4th. And on August 4th, if you look at the last column for FY22, we had 5,943 students. I traditionally pull that information right when school starts because it usually shows a very high number. Some of our ghosts might still be there, but they are in our system, so I do pull them as a potential student. So these are not warm bodies. This is what on August 4th said that kids were registered, and I've done that every year. Generally, what we do, if you look at the very bottom, is the percentage growth from one year to the next. So if you look at from FY21 to FY22, we actually were negative 0.2% in growth. And if you've been in our community for a while and in our district, you know we haven't really negatively grown. And I look at FY21 and 22 as the COVID era. Nothing is really correct on what normally happens. So our methodology this year, or what we do every year, is we take the last 5 years average growth. And specifically this year, I've told School Facilities Board in this report of what we're doing that we have thrown out FY21 and 22, and I've gone back to the 5 years before that. So from FY16 to FY20, our average percentage growth was 2.2%. And I'm not sure if that's exactly what's going to hold true because we apply this 2.2% growth to the next 15 years. And so obviously that's not going to hold true. It could go up, it could go down. Anything in our community is really tied to economics, how many houses they're selling, which is the biggest one, how fast Rancho Sahuarita is selling houses and developing. So there's a lot of things that go into this theoretical crystal ball. But for consistency's sake, I have taken the last 5 years average growth from FY16, FY20, thrown out 21 and 22, because I feel it's just not appropriate. The next slide basically tells you what I just said in writing. So you can read that for yourself, but it basically says we're taking out FY 21-22 and we're using a 2.2% average growth rate right now. What's neat about this report is we do it every year, so as next year it'll be interesting to see what I will be able to use, because hopefully we're coming back a little bit more and we actually have a positive growth of what's really happening. On the next slide, this is a visual representation of that 2.2% growth. So if you look at FY22, we have to break the student population down into pre-kindergarten through 8th grade, which is on the top, and 9th through 12th grade, which is on the bottom. So in that very first cell for FY22, these are, again, think about the previous slide, these are kids that were actually enrolled on August 4th. And so those numbers are obviously in decline a little bit because we have not, because of COVID. So those numbers are a little bit lower than where they normally would be, which when you apply the 2.2% growth to all the years to FY31, those numbers will be a little bit lower than where they normally would be because we had lost 400 students. So it obviously changes that trajectory. Last year, if you look at the top, the red box represents where we were on the last report. So on the last report from last year, we don't need another elementary school until after FY31. Now that will change as we keep growing again, which is nice. We do this report every year. SFB takes this data and does their own report, and they really tell us what's going to happen. If you look at the high school, this shows that we exceed capacity for high school, which is, they say it's 2,469. We will get move past that in FY27. Again, the reason this probably shows that we are out on that trajectory because we used a lower number for the FY22 because of COVID. It is nice to say, and you guys have approved the terms and conditions last board meeting, project number 014N is not being taken away from us. So that's why that arrow the green arrow shows it to FY24. That's where we propose that we are going to be opening some more capacity for the high school level, which we believe is going to be an addition to both high schools. That's the $18 million that we talked about last board meeting. So again, even though I show it's FY27, again skewed because our numbers are down because of COVID, that's really happening in FY24. Another part of the report that I have to do, next slide please, is I have to list the housing development list of things that are substantial in our district. And I wanted to show you a couple more pieces of information that's not necessarily in the report on the next slide, but this slide is basically showing some of the major housing developments. We have Rancho Sahuarita North, and I apologize, North is normally considered up by Pima Mine Road. I consider now Rancho Sahuarita North anything above Sahuarita Road. So really, Rancho Sahuarita North, which I'll show you in just a moment, is that development north of Fry's and behind Safari Park. That's what I'm considering Rancho Sahuarita North. We have Santa Cruz Meadows, which is just south of the Mormon Church, which is starting to get built out and not too many more houses coming in. The newest one, which just has arisen, is the La Vita Specific Plan, which I'll show you where that is. And then Rancho Sahuarita South, which I consider anything south of Sahuarita Road. And these two, Entrada La Coraza and Entrada del Pueblo, is the developments coming in south of Wrightson Ridge, and I'll show you those. The next slide is, although we know how many plots are coming in and how many houses are going to be built, how does that tell us how many students that's actually going to be when we plan for this? And SFB looks at this as well. This is a report that I put together many years ago and compared it to other school districts. And most school districts basically have the same ratio. The first line in Rancho Sahuarita, basically, I took the number of homes at the time, basically divided by the number of K-5 students that we had at that time. And within Rancho Sahuarita, which has its own unique characteristics, houses, are a certain expense level, and that produces about 0.28. It's the first yellow box you see, K-5 students out of a Rancho Sahuarita house. For 6-8, it produces about 0.14, and high school, it produces about 0.14. I took other geographical locations because they're different, again, different types of houses, different types of acreage, different types of house values, and in La Cañada, north and south of Walmart, you can see the numbers there. And then Madera Highlands, which is really high school only, they produce 0.21 students. So again, taking all of those and finding the average, what I do when we look at the number of lots being built is I look at the district average, which is 1/4 of an elementary student comes from each house, 0.12 for middle school, and 0.17 for high school. So the next slide is basically Rancho Sahuarita Rancho Sahuarita North, and I showed this slide last year. There was 514 homes that, or lots that are plotted there. Basically, that means for K through 8, 216 students, and high school was 74 students. The next slide, which is the first time we've ever seen this. This is the plat from the town of Sahuarita that I obtained and how many lots that were going to be built. Also, in speaking with Rancho Sahuarita and their articulation to the town of when these things are going to happen, which I also have to put in the report. Just south of Wrightson Ridge, they're going to build 144 lots, which is in purple. And also the timeline for that, the town says, in quote, the first homes will be happening in late spring of 22, which is the end of the school year, or the summer, which is right after the school year. So none of this will affect this school year at all. And again, it's really hard to determine the crystal ball and how fast people will buy these houses. But just that purple area will produce 37 elementary students, 19 middle school, and and 26 high school. The next phase after that, which is the infrastructure, is supposed to be completed in May of 22, and maybe homes possible in the fall of 2022. And again, whether that comes to fruition, we're not sure yet or not. But again, that will be 428 lots and producing 111, 56, and 77 respectively. The next slide represents the total impact of that, which will be 245 students, probably on Wrightson Ridge, which means we'll start looking at possible boundary realignments, but we feel like right now we don't need to address that based on the timelines on the previous slide. The next slide is also brand new, first time that we've ever seen it. This is the La Villita specific plan, which is a 10-year phase. Basically, if you drive south on La Villita where the trailer park is, they're going to continue that road, and there's some out-of-town investors that have invested in the La Villita specific plan. Again, 10-year phase, 1,000 lots, and I don't want to read that to you, but in totality, it will be 565 students that that area will affect. On the next slide, again, some of the things that School Facilities Board asked for is open enrollment. Are we having a lot of students come in from other school districts? And you can see and this is by district, some of them have gone up and some of them have gone down. Overall, it's been a little bit of a decrease in open enrollment, specifically from last year to this year. But again, just data that the SFB asks for. And the last slide is basically the tuition in and tuition out, meaning what school district pays us to take their students. So that is basically Continental Elementary School District, which all of their high school students come to, mostly Walden Grove, unless they're on open enrollment to SHS. But last year it was 260, and this year it's 266. And with that, although the trajectory is not perfect, we will provide this information upon your approval to the School Facilities Board, which will take the information, expand on it, apply more formulas to it, and we'll get a report back from them. And they confirm everything that I've done, and they'll give a report back to us saying this is kind of where your status is right now. And with that, I'll answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Really quickly, where do the preschool numbers from the ECC fall in?
They fall under COP review.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good question. Thank you.
And how do we treat our SDPA students? Now, a lot of them are in the digital, but some of them are actually, I think, maybe coming to class for one class or JTED or something of that nature, right?
On this report, because this is a brick and mortar report, I did not include them on this report. If a lot of them start to come back again, which is why those numbers are a little bit skewed, they're not in this report since it's a brick and mortar report.
Okay.
I would say last year they would have been included because they were still affiliated with their brick and mortar schools. But as we know, through a lot of hard work, Mr. Bonner's initiative with the AOI designation, it is now its own unique school. So those kids are standalone with the SDPA.
Yep.
Any other questions?
If not, then at this point, I would recommend approval of the Arizona School Facilities Board capital plan for fiscal year 22 as it was presented this evening by Mr. Downs.
Thank you for that recommendation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your approval.
No, thank you for your hard work.
We'll move on to new business, the policy revision, DKC expense authorization and reimbursement. I believe this is the second reading after tabling it last time.
Yes, and again, this is an allowable change that I received on recommendation from our CFO, Ms. Huey, whose office is responsible for processing these types of things. This again has to do with specifically reimbursement for meals when official school travel is taking place. So it's a teacher going to a conference or to a program event with students where they're entitled to receive some kind of reimbursement. The traditional way is you have to bring back every receipt from Applebee's or McDonald's, wherever you went, and you have to turn it in, and it has to fall below a certain threshold, which is kind of still the case. However, the Auditor General has determined that from an efficiency standpoint, to designate trust me, it's a modest amount that they give for reimbursement, but that to designate as long as the employee is eligible for that and just to pay those basic rates is more cost effective overall. And so what this policy would do is it would allow, in accordance with the Auditor General standards, for that type of procedure involving travel. So I do think that it makes sense, it's sound, it saves staff hours, it saves paperwork and paper keeping. So after this tabling has taken place, which it now has, I would recommend the board's approval of policy revision to DKC regarding expense authorization and reimbursements as it was presented and amended.
Thank you for the recommendation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Hopefully that will make the workload a little lighter.
Yes.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the path forward update. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And I would like to begin with a sincere mea culpa. Apologies on my part. We've been doing this update just to provide folks with kind of current information on our progress in different areas regarding our return to safe learning. Of course, at the last board meeting, we had this request to do a survey about the masks and just how people feel about it. And we have the results. I will share them. But I didn't ask that they be presented for projection here. So I'll give you the numbers, and we'll put them up. Amber can make sure that we put them up wherever she thinks they need to be put up by tomorrow. But this evening, that is what I wanted to talk about. So again, as was mentioned, at the last governing board meeting, the board had a conversation about perspectives of the staff and of parents in regards to what seems like this never-ending topic of masks. And so really what was asked was, do you prefer masks to be optional, or do you prefer masks to be mandatory? And there's all kinds of opinions and all kinds of thoughts and all kinds of perspectives about that. But I think what I heard from the board was not that we were going to take a vote or that we were going to do anything based on any one piece of information. This is more complicated than any one piece of information. But that the board wanted kind of a litmus, kind of a new check-in, kind of a rough dipstick of kind of where people are feeling. So with Mrs. Wood's leadership and initiative and expertise, we went forward on that. Again, it wasn't a vote or a referendum. It was just a desire for more information. And I would say, and again, full disclaimer, that like a lot of things that we do, sometimes it's not always perfect, but we always try to fix it. So I know that there were some issues with people getting access. Google had made some security enhancements that we weren't plugged into, and then we had to go back and fix those. Also, our alert system, which sends you those emails and text messages, same kind of thing. So it took us a couple days to fix that up, but we acknowledge that. We fielded individual questions. We sent out en masse updates and messages so people knew what was going on, and we really remained committed that anybody who wanted to fill it out would have a chance. Another thing that we did is we extended the deadline by a week beyond what was originally published so that there would be no doubt. So again, it's one indicator. The survey ran, I think, from around September 20th until last Friday, which I believe was October the 8th. We got 859 responses. So again, just for your perspective, and this is not unlike research, those of us that love research and live in the world of research, managing samples and statistical power and effect, those things are pretty complicated and hard. But we got 859 responses tied to, as you saw, we currently serve 6,274 students, and we did link the survey per student. And we have approximately 860 plus members of our support staff and certified employee team members. 859 responses. It was done by child, and the reason we did that, and again, there's nothing perfect about statistics, even like world-class, worldwide, peer-reviewed research, it's not perfect. But we linked it by child so that we could kind of balance and avoid what frankly has happened in some of our other surveys, where we make them a little too easy and accessible, which is you get people from outside our area, people who are not really the target audience, that jump in and start participating, or people participating multiple times, and it kind of defeats the purpose. On the other hand, we didn't want to make it so difficult, cumbersome, time-consuming, that it was going to get in the way of people even wanting to participate. We've all gotten surveys like that where you're like, oh, I don't think I want to deal with it. So we did it by child. I think once we got it fixed, it worked out fairly well, although admittedly, it had limits, like all surveys do. Like, for example, if a parent has 3 or 4 kids in the district, they could technically log into all 3 of them and cast a vote. So there was that. But we weren't claiming it was perfect. We wanted a rough update on how people felt. So again, what we received was data that had some margins for error, but I think, as you'll see in my estimation, we kind of got, frankly, what I thought we would get. And again, we'll actually post this. So we got like 539 parent responses and about 320 staff responses. So it was about a 60-40 split in its absolute numbers. Now, never mind that, of course, that is a different percentage of the relative numbers of staff and parents. But it was about a 60-40 split. Let me make sure. Yeah, I mentioned it's one. I've also said we try and look at not just one indicator. We try and look at a variety of things. And with this survey, I'd say let's just accept it and value it for what it is and not make it more than what it is. So as I said, it had limits based on its sample size. It was relatively small, especially on the parent side. The sampling process, I mentioned the 2+ votes, and you unless you're going to invest hours, it's hard to tell how many people that have 3 kids voted 3 times versus those that voted once. But again, it did tie to the student. So there were issues about the representation of the sample, and also didn't cover what I would call the range of feelings. If you look at the graphs when Amber puts them up, it's like there's blue and then there's red. I said, what about the purple? Because you don't really capture people that might feel one way or another, but you can't measure like the dial, different levels of feelings in that regard. So all I'm saying is it had limits. So what did we get? Kind of what I frankly would have predicted if I would have had to predict. In essence, if you take all the votes and you said the percentage of people that requested, said they preferred mask to be optional, was 51%. The numbers that said that they would prefer mask to be mandatory, 49%. So it was very, very small difference, and frankly, when you look at the margin of error, it was right there. It was interesting. The other thing that, if you remember, the question asked if you're a parent or a staff member. Among the parents, it was a little bit more weighted toward making them mandatory. Among this sample, it was like 55-45. So again, within the many considerations, 55-45, 51-49, it's really close. And on the staff side, it was the opposite. Even to a little more degree, among our staff, we had 60% of our staff that preferred the mask to be optional, and about 40% that preferred the mask to be mandatory. So what does this tell you? I'll tell you what it told me is kind of what I already kind of knew from talking to you all, from getting your emails, from the communication, from the feedback that we've gotten, is that there's a variety of thought. Our community is diverse. There's an array of opinions, and people to a varying degree have different thoughts about this. So I think to me it reinforced as the district superintendent who's charged with providing guidance and counsel to this members of the elected body who are elected from the community. I think it really reinforces the fact that what we're doing, really, as not perfect as it might be, is sound, in that we're not hanging our hat on any one indicator at any one point in time, but that we're looking at a dynamic, regular look at multiple factors. So what do we know? Let's just talk about what we know in terms of how we're making our decisions. So right now, as of today, I think we have 7 active cases. I try and track this every morning. And in the evening, before I leave. Amber's my witness. Before I leave, what does the dashboard look like? So, it ebbs and flows, and there's different variables. We just came back from fall break. It was a little higher. But it's hovered around that 10, 12 level for the last few weeks. Again, today it was about 7. Local case management. We look at how well are we managing the cases that we have. Frankly, toward the end of last year, right before Christmas, it was challenging when the number of students who were being quarantined, our ability to track, trace, isolate based on resources, it got really, really tough. And we had pretty large swaths of students that were on quarantine. And you remember that we ended up moving back to full remote for a while. Well, right now, at this point in time, we're doing fairly well. Our district nurse, Janine Sarnacki, coordinates that efforts every day. We also just, our board authorized, and we're in the process of onboarding 3 new health services support personnel. So there's a myriad of county reporting, tracking, tracing, documenting, communicating with parents when these things happen. So to make ourselves more effective and efficient, we've hired 3 new health services support personnel that'll hopefully elevate our level of service and our responsiveness and our efficiency in taking care of these issues to keep them as contained as possible. Another thing we're doing on site is we have those rapid tests that all of our health offices have been trained on how to use. And it allows us, if somebody has symptoms, instead of sending them home and having mom and dad have to run around, take time off work, go to Walgreens or CVS to get a test, or to the doctors, and then come back, we're able to do it on site. And if they're negative and they are otherwise eligible, they can go right back to class. If they have something else that's not COVID, but they're negative, they can come back quicker. And another good thing, if the kid tests negative, is that the siblings who previously had to quarantine because they were under the same roof now don't have to. So I think in that regard, things are going well. We currently don't have any outbreak cases. We've had a couple classrooms that we've had to shut down throughout the course of this, but right now we're doing pretty well. Legally, we got to consider legalities. Currently, as you heard within the last probably couple weeks, the Superior Court in Maricopa County ruled that not really about the policy, but that the way the law was passed, where a lot of these policy things, including masks, mandates in schools, were put in the budget reconciliation bill, that was deemed unlawful, at least for now. It's now pending review by the Arizona Supreme Court. So my point with that is this stuff is ebbing and flowing all the time. We obviously want to be legally compliant among safety and other things. This thing is changing, and one of our priorities is to give our kids consistency. Let them, one of the things I like to see is every day I walk around, the buses come up, the kids get off. I walk into class, kids are in the classroom. I go to the stadium on Friday night and kids are playing football. So we want to give them, as much as we can, the consistency of the daily routine, which frankly has been missing to a large degree for 18 months. And so we don't want to move by fits and starts with these things. And so consistency's been good. We do value community feedback. I mean, this survey, like I said, it's not everything. It is one piece of information that we value. We also value, and myself, my team, and I know this board because I've been with them. You know, we walk school campuses, we go into classrooms, and we look at things like, you know, how many kids are wearing masks, you know, and and I know that to different degrees at different ages. Kids sometimes do things that their parents might not authorize or direct, but generally, it's kind of correlated to what the direction is from home. It's correlated in some way. So we look at all that, we value that. We also look at public guidance, and we know even sometimes, frankly, that's a little confusing. Different agencies, local, county, state, federal, and then they're changing as they're trying to move through this stuff. As we know, masks are still, as far as I know, recommended indoors by CDC. And yet, there was a mask mandate at Pima County last week by the Board of Supervisors that was voted down by a vote of 3-2. And in the past, I think the counties voted for stuff that was more pro-mask oriented. So that guidance we look at, but we also know that it's rapidly changing. Let's see, so we listened to our public health authorities, and I guess in summary, it's still a very dynamic, very uncertain, rapidly changing situation. I will tell you that I count my blessings every day. I think about a year ago where we were just barely thinking about bringing our high school and middle school kids back to hybrid. And thankfully, our cases right now are, I think I can safely say, no worse than they were last year at this time when we were only bringing in half the kids. So you gotta be thankful for those things. So with that, again, it's a summary, it's an update. I don't think necessarily every time that I bring this item to the agenda, I have a recommendation to change anything. In fact, I guess if I had to summarize it, is that overall, I think our mitigation plan, the path forward, and these indicators that I talked about suggest that school is running, although with its challenges, is running fairly smoothly. And I guess at this time, the recommendation is no recommendation, that we continue to move forward and monitor and adjust as needed with the path forward with fidelity. So that's my report for this evening. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Dr. Valenzuela? No? Okay, great. We'll move forward to the ASBA bylaw amendment.
Yes, sir. I will speak briefly on this because this really is a matter of the organization. But for the general knowledge of the public, the district is members of the Arizona School Board Association, as is, I believe, every other public school district in Arizona. And this is, I believe, a bylaw request to increase and make change in the membership of the ASBA board by adding an additional permanent fixed member. And I think the idea is just to provide consistency of representation, is what I understand. So with that, I would turn it over to you. Obviously, I have no recommendation on that one.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you're correct. This is a matter for the board to consider and decide on a vote. Are there any discussion amongst the board? No? Okay. So I will make a motion to vote. I guess let's see how to state this here.
To adopt the recommendation.
Yeah, to adopt the recommendation to add the additional seat for the board. So a yes vote would be we agree, and a no vote would be you disagree with adding that. Okay. So that's my motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Thank you very much. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. So that passes. We will submit a yes vote for the additional seat. Betsy, I believe you're our designation.
President
Thank you.
Opelka.
Yes.
Can I make a motion that we authorize Betsy Palacios to make that submission on behalf of the board?
Second.
Yeah, motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
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 There, it's
Thank you,
confirmed.
Betsy.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to new business, the consent agenda. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, sir. President Opelka, thank you. You have a list of routine consent matters that are allowed by law to be considered in one comprehensive motion, and that is my recommendation, the board's approval of the entire consent agenda at this time.
Thank you very much. I have a recommendation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you very much. Motion passes. Any possible future agenda considerations? No? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to establish the next board meeting. It will be October 27th. Are we really going to do it down at Sopery? as we
Yes,
say?
sir,
All
that
right,
is the
great.
anticipation.
Excellent. Our annual pilgrimage down to Sopery. Look forward to seeing the community down there. We'll move on to, I need a motion to recess into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I think before we go into it, I have to read this, don't I?
Yes, sir, you do.
So, the executive session for all persons present are hereby reminded that it is unlawful to disclose or otherwise divulge to any person who is not now present during the executive session, other than a current member of the board or pursuant to a specific statutory exception, anything that has transpired or has been disclosed during the executive session. Failure to comply is a violation of ARS 38431.03. Thank you. So we'll ask the public to,
There will be no further public action by
Yeah.
the board this evening. Thank you all.
thank you.
Thank you.
No, I don't do the roll call. We do that before. I don't do that.